Dawn, and welcome to Talk of the Town. My name is Karen Bukes, and I thank you for tuning in to our show this evening. I trust you had a fabulous Thanksgiving. Did you eat enough turkey yet? I have to make some turkey soup. I'm real good at that. And pretty soon it'll be Christmas. And then 2014, my God, what do we do? Do we waste? Do we wish our lives away? I'm telling you. But I have a thank you card here from Ida Miller. You remember her. She was on the show Wicked Moon about the Sims house and what happened there. She wrote the book, and she sent a wonderful thank you card. And we sure loved her. She a great woman, Randy Parker's sister. Hi, Mary Ellen. So let's get going, and some of our underwriters, acknowledge them. Jeff Cohn and One Stop Painting. Jeff does it all. Great Plymouth company. Brewster PC Solutions with Wrestling Brewster. Tune into PAC TV to see wrestling show. Very informative. Attorneys Trifoletti and Costa, right here in Plymouth on Long Pond Road. And underwriter David and Kevin Gallerani, the best shop in town. They own Cape Auto and Cape Service. Locations are Samoset and Sandwich Streets right here in Plymouth. Hello, David. I hope you're watching. Now, you know you can call tonight, 508-830-3971. We're down one member of our crew, Jimmy. He had a little bit of surgery. And plus, we're having technical difficulties with Comcast. So if anything happens, you know why. Now, I've been looking forward to tonight's show because the fellow sitting beside me is really terrific. He has some wonderful experiences, done practically everything. And very informative and entertaining. He owned a number of fabulous restaurants, and I'm sure that you've eaten at. And he's also a famous radio talk show host. And he's going to enlighten us tonight with some wonderful stories and his friendship with the Kennedys and what he's done in his personal life, which I find so fascinating. And his radio station, WXTK 95.1 on the radio dial. Please welcome Don McKeag.
Hi, Karen. How are you?
Hello, Don.
I don't know where I can go from there. It's all going to be downhill.
No. I can't get over your voice.
You can't?
No, because, you know, you hear it on Saturday,
yes.
But and there you are. You're sitting here. This is the first time we've met. But you've achieved so much in your life, Don. You know, I don't know where to start. Where would you like to start?
Well, I could probably start with the fact I grew up in the wonderful town of Weymouth, you know, the second oldest town set to Plymouth only.
Sure.
It was a wonderful place, and I went to school at the University of Massachusetts in Amherst, got a wonderful education, and taught school in the towns of Hingham and Rockland.
See,
and,
that I did not.
I enjoyed, yeah.
Yeah, I did not know that about you.
I loved it. I loved the kids, and I always missed it. I was glad I moved on. I stayed in it 14 years, and I coached football and baseball, and I just really enjoyed it very much. But it was time for me to try something else. I wanted to try being in business. Mm-hmm. And I think that really happened, Karen, because in the summers, you know, we went down to the Cape, played baseball, and worked in the different restaurants and bars, and that kind of whetted my appetite to someday own my own place. So
it's a big undertaking.
Yeah, well, it's tougher today than ever.
Tell everybody what the restaurants you owned.
Well, I owned, the first real restaurant I owned was the Asa Burris House on Main Street in Hyannis, which became very popular. And
ate there many times.
It was fun, and of course I had wonderful musicians.
Yeah.
Dave McKenna, one of the finest piano players that ever lived, he was my house piano player. So, I mean, I could spend the whole show talking about the different people who came in. It was interesting. We were in Yankee Magazine I built an edition called The Reading Room. And it was made out of, I bought a lot, I love antiquity, and I bought the interior of the Rockland Opera House. Now, a lot of people never knew there was an opera house in Rockland, but there was, right on Union Street in the center of town. And then I also bought the interior of Hovey's Drugstore, which was in Whitman. And then I had a variety of things. And anyway, I put them all together, and the room was so beautiful that Yankee Magazine, I had to believe it was 30 years ago, 1983, it was in the September issue. So I was very proud of that, but because of Dave playing the piano, just briefly, imagine who you could come in, a glass of wine was $1.85, can you believe it?
$10 now.
I know. Well, the poor restaurants, so their utilities and taxes are killing them. But anyway, imagine having a glass of wine and sitting there, and because we had the Melody tent down the street, we had different
Guess
people
what
come
I'm
in.
going to do
Different
for you?
guests. Oh, you can't?
I think it's too low.
Okay.
That's too high.
Okay.
We lost the piece of it, but that's okay.
Okay.
Are we back in business?
We're back in business.
Well.
Go ahead. So.
No, but anyway, so just briefly, so I'll just throw some of the names, and many of them became good friends of mine. But Jack Jones, of course, at the time he was famous, a great singer, but famous for the theme from Love Boat.
Yes.
And Rosemary Clooney, George's aunt, who was a wonderful friend, Martha Gray, and Tony Bennett, and Sergio Franchi, and I mean, it just goes on and on. So you could sit there and never know who was going to get up and sing. I never had a cover or a minimum.
I love that place.
It was a great. And then I bought the Flying Bridge in Falmouth on the harbor.
Been there too.
Which I really should never have sold it, but I should have leased it. But
we loved it.
That was a great place.
I love the open air of it. You know.
I know it was
right out to the pier.
It was fabulous. I had a lot of great stories there.
Tell
too.
us.
We don't have enough time.
Tell us. You know, somebody famous pulled up at your pier. Actually, a couple of people.
Oh, more than a couple. Yes.
Tell me.
Well, the one that's humorous is. One afternoon, I was sitting having my lunch, and I saw a sailboat pull up on the dock. I had 13 slips plus the gas dock, and the sailboat pulled up, and I saw this fellow get out and walk up the hill and talk to the waiter. People were sitting outside, and so the waiter comes in to me and said, Don, there's some celebrities on that boat that would like to come in for lunch. But they need a private space. I said, well, it was about 2:30 or 3. Lunch hour was over. I said, certainly, that's easy. We'll just put them over in that whole section there. So he goes back out. I see him talk to the fellow, and then back he comes in. He said, well, they said, it's Stevie Nicks. And they said, Stevie said that everyone else will have to leave if they're going to come for lunch. So I went out of my mind. I got off the seat, and I ran out onto the outside, and there's only about 3 tables there. And so I look, and on one side was this kind of balding fellow with 2 small children and a gal and another couple, and then there was 2 other deuces, I think. And so I said, who do you think you are? And I went right at him, and of course, being very reticent, no one could hear me. Well, anyway, I said, you get that boat out of here. Who do you think? No one's leaving this place for Stevie Nicks or anybody else. So he goes, and he turned around, and as he's going, I said, by the way, tell her if it weren't for electronics, she wouldn't be able to get a job waitressing here. Oh. She sings in 1 key, and that's not so hot. And I turn, and when I turn, the balding fellow and the kids, but the balding fellow and the gal he's with, who happened to be his wife, and the other couple are laughing like crazy. So I go in muttering, and I sit down and start my lunch again. But I felt bad for Ricky, the waiter, because I knew he was dying to wait on the rock stars. So he's outside, so he comes back in, and he starts to come over, and he says to me, Don, I said, gee, I'm sorry, Ricky, but I said, I'm not going to. He said, oh, that's fine. But he said, do you know who those people are out there that were laughing? I said, no, who were they? He said, James Taylor.
James, he got a kick out of it.
And he said he wanted me to tell you that he was very impressed with your evaluation of singing talent. So that was a great story.
He probably told her that.
James Taylor was out there. Oh, boy.
Well,
so there were a variety of...
That's wonderful.
We had the monkey business out there that some people might remember, the Gary Hart Democratic campaign for president. He was going to win. He was going to be the candidate.
Yep.
And then he rented the monkey business, and they used to be out on my front dock for all summers when they were on, they didn't have a charter. And they had a crew of 5 young girls who were beautiful, and they'd wash the boat, white shorts. And the captain was either from Norway or Finland. Lars, Captain Lars, he was a handsome, you know, right out of the Love Boat scene, and he was a terrific guy. They used to hang out, so we got to know them. But there was a great story with them too. And I came down one day, and it was the lunch business. We were full, but I sat down, was talking. I didn't see any turnover. So I said to the hostess, a little girl from North Carolina with that twang, and I said, Kathleen, what? I said, what's happening here? We're not turning tables over. We should be, there's people waiting. They've been waiting. Well, Dawn, she says, you better talk to Captain Lars. I said, why? She said, those girls have been out there washing the decks of that boat now during lunch. And she said, these men come in for lunch and they don't want to leave. So I started to laugh. So that afternoon, I talked to Captain Lars, and we both laughed. And from then on, they washed the deck at 3 o'clock instead of noon.
Oh, my goodness.
So anyway,
that's a great story.
Then there was the Backside Saloon, which was in Hyannis.
I don't remember that.
Yeah,
Where
that was on
that?
the way to Baxter's down on the pier.
Okay.
Behind the drugstore, behind the hardware store, which...
Was that upstairs?
Bradford's Hardware. No, it was downstairs. It used to be 3 bars in one. There was the Velvet Hammer, the Backside Saloon, and the Red Door. And they had entertainment in all 3.
Yes.
And in February, they'd be packed. That was a different time, you know. So, and then, you know, I worked at different places, and finally, I had a B&B in between, too. Wow. So I know the B&B business. Don't do it.
Yeah.
If you're thinking about it, don't do it.
Very hard work.
Hard work.
Very hard.
And then finally, the Crane Brook, as you know, in Carver. Beautiful place.
Beautiful.
Wonderful
I've eaten
town.
there, and I've eaten out in the porch.
The economy just hurt me, but I miss the kids that work for me, and I miss the people. We had a very nice experience there.
It was wonderful to walk in to see that ambiance, and the food was delicious.
It was. Well, I made a mistake of not advertising more, that the prices weren't as high. The woman I bought it from, they did a nice job, but they were known to be really kind of way up there, and small portions. And I never believed in that. I know people, as a man that went out to eat, I used to say to my wife, every time you take me to a place that takes a lemon peel and makes it look like a swan, I know I'm going to leave hungry, you know.
Absolutely.
But we didn't, and we had a wonderful Sunday brunch, and we should have been a lot busier, but it was out in the middle. And then what really hurt us was the weather. We had two bad winters.
Seasons,
snowstorms, you know, on weekends. Never got them on a Monday or a Tuesday. It was always a weekend. So.
I remember we had drinks out on the porch.
Wasn't that fun on the deck? The swans, were the swans there? Yeah.
It was heavenly. I could have lived there.
It was nice. I did.
Yeah.
I lived upstairs.
I know. I know. You know, that place reminded me of Chiltonville, and I love Chiltonville, and it's so preserved and kept so beautiful, and that's what it reminded me of. Yeah. You know, the flowers. You kept it so well appointed.
It was. I was proud of that. I've been proud of all the places, and most of all, I've always been proud of my employees. I've always been
treated them well.
I've been very fortunate. All these restaurants. Maybe it's because I worked. I was a waiter. I was a bartender. I played the piano. I knew what you go through. You know, some of these people buy a restaurant or any business, and you know, it's always the employee's fault. Well, I mean, you know, I don't abide the employee being insulting, but I used to throw the people out and keep the employee.
We always give 20%, but we have a son, our only son. He gives 30, and he says, you know, it's a good thing that he can do it. Yeah. But he says it's one of the hardest jobs in the world is to be a waiter, waitress. I think I hear somebody on the phone.
Hi, how's it going?
How's it going? Thank you for calling.
Sure, love to take a call. I just wanted to, great to see you have a great guest, Don, on your show.
Oh, thank you. Isn't he wonderful?
Who is this?
This is a Plymouth guy who ate at your restaurants in the past, and I just love the food and chatting with you. My wife and I both were at your restaurant in Carver a little while ago.
Oh, good. Thanks. Glad you liked it.
Rob, don't you think I know this fellow?
Oh, do you?
He doesn't call all the time.
Yeah.
Rob, don't you think it's time for him to own another one?
Oh, no.
It's hard, yeah.
The days, the restaurants.
Yeah.
You know, Don knows, too, the secret for the restaurants is consistency, price, and quality of food. So there's something like Plymouth has one of the best restaurants. Don't you think, Don?
Plymouth has some very fine restaurants. You know, I was always, you know, focused on Cape Cod, but since I've come to Carver, I love the town of Plymouth, and I really like the restaurants. I think they do a very nice job.
Thank you for saying that,
I mean that, too. I think they do a very nice, and then they work down hard to please the people, you know.
Have you been to 42 North yet?
I have.
Oh, I love that place.
Well, Kevin is from Weymouth.
I love Kevin.
He is.
He's
crazy.
Yeah, I love him.
He's just like me. He's crazy, but I love him.
Yeah, I love him.
Yeah, they've done a good job. So have you got another question, Rob, or what?
Sure, Don. What do you think of the governor's race coming up with some of the candidates coming out?
Oh boy! Well, I'm gonna, you know me, I'm gonna throw it right out there. Baker should win it, and I don't think he will. And the reason he won't, although I see he's named, oh dear, Pat.
She was on my show.
She's a great gal.
Yeah.
My gosh.
What
begins with a P too, and it's Karen Polito, isn't it?
Karen Polito.
Yes, and she's a doll. But the Democrats just control the minds of the voters here, and I think this Coakley, I think what you're going to get is, unfortunately, a female mentality where they're going to feel bad that she lost the senatorial race, and she's a woman, and they voted for Elizabeth Warren, and I don't think the results are going to be any different.
But you're a Democrat.
No, I'm a recovering Democrat.
You're a recovering Democrat?
I'm a non-political.
Yeah.
I can't stand either party, to be very frank. There's individuals I think the world of, but party politics should be dead and buried, as far as I'm concerned.
Here's one thing for you, too. There's a little a third card in the race that nobody's sort of is going to surprise you a lot. It's Jeff McCormick, the independent, who's running.
Oh, is he running? Yeah, I did not see that.
Some of the other folks, and I saw...
well, that'll hurt the Republican, though. See, that's the trouble. The Democrats, having been, you know, deeply involved in Democratic politics, they can hold their nose when they vote, but as long as it's a Democrat, they'll cast the vote. And merit doesn't seem to matter, and it really upsets me. It's one of the things that drove me out of the Democratic Party.
I was a Democrat also.
Yeah.
I'm an independent.
I was a John F. Kennedy Democrat.
Yeah, me too. That's the Democrat.
That was a different time.
Yeah.
But anyway, Rob, nice to hear from you.
Nice talking to you.
Thanks for taking the time.
Good seeing your face and seeing you again, and look forward to seeing you in town.
I've got a great face for radio. Huh? Here I am on TV.
Well, you can do both. That goes to show you. You have a great ability to do both.
I think so.
We'll see. Thank you.
I think so.
Yeah.
I gave up on the parties a long time ago.
Oh, it's
and I got a lot of good Democrats elected. In Boston, and it's just not the same anymore. But although I know some wonderful Democrats right here in town, they're wonderful.
You know, the trouble is people take it personal when I say that, and that's okay. I mean, I say what I say because it's the truth. And you know, I've said before, I said in this state you could paint a rock on the polling place, paint a rock with a D on it, and the rock would get 2/3 of the vote. And that's a pathetic statement to make. Now when you just vote Democrat or anybody else, I mean, it would be just as bad. But when you just vote for the person because they're affiliated and you don't put any importance in experience and in ability, that's why we're in the mess we're in. Look at this state house. Look at this state.
Now tell me how this happened. You were very, very close friends with Ted Kennedy.
Yes, I was. Loved him, man.
How did that happen?
Well, I moved into Hyannisport when I sold the Flying Bridge. I moved, and he lived just down the street, and I had met him a couple of times, and we just hit it off. And he was probably one of the kindest people I've ever met.
They always said that.
And I've always, the reason I say this is, you know, we used to have, I became quite close, and I was in that inner circle. In fact, I always think of the Fridays after Thanksgiving. Now, we just went through this 50th anniversary, which is, isn't that hard to believe? 50 years have gone by.
Yeah, very hard.
But we just went through that, and how tragic it was. And I thought of it this last Friday, the day after Thanksgiving. But Ted, some time ago, it has to be over 20 years anyway, he started a Friday after 6 to 9, he'd have a Friday cocktail party for friends, and on the day after Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
I went to a lot of them, probably I think 18 years or 19.
Wow.
But it was the time when he'd have different people would get up and sing or say poem, and I'd play the piano at the end.
He loved doing that.
And but I mean, he was, but instead of, the reason I bring that up is instead of being morose and sad at that time of the year, he refused to do that. Right. He used to say to me, Donnie, I haven't got time for whiners and moaners. But he did more nice things, kind things, and I say this not to cover or excuse faults that he had early on in his life, earlier on, but because there's so many people who don't have a true picture of the person. You know, he was a terrific person.
You said that, and you said people just, you know, you wished everybody could get to know him like you did.
I did wish that.
Because he was a wonderful, kind, generous, loving person.
There is no one, truly, and I know because I saw it. No press. He took more people sailing and kids, and that Kennedy house, whether you like the Kennedys or not, they let people use their home the way no other celebrity I've ever heard of would. You know, Ted bought that house from his mother after his divorce, and they had fundraisers, they had tours for charity.
Yes.
You tell me how many famous, half-famous people would ever let their own home be used.
Yeah, he was, and he lived.
I say that again, not to glorify myself in terms of knowing him.
Oh no, I'm asking you because I know. But we have another phone call.
Okay.
Hello, you're on Talk of the Town.
Hello, Karen. Hello, Don.
Hi.
Oh, hello. Oh.
She recognizes
One
you.
of my favorite people.
Well, thank you, Karen. Don, I know we've spoken in the past. This is Richard, by the way.
Hi, Richard.
Hi. And how do you think Teddy would have fared if he had won the presidency, if he had ever become president?
Yeah.
I think I think he would have done a good job. I really do. But I don't think his heart was in it. I think he would have liked to it from an ego standpoint, but I truly don't think he was. I don't know. It's hard for me to tell, but I knew him so well that I don't think he wanted to be involved in that big a thing. So the Senate was, I think, the ideal spot for him.
Yes, he does.
Now, Mitt Romney, on the other hand, would have been an excellent president, and I believe it's been a shame that
that'll
that
get
we
Richard
didn't get him.
going.
Well, that's it. I think he was because his outlook was a bigger field. You know, Mitt Romney had a more international concern, I think, than Ted. Ted liked United States issues and state issues. I'm not saying he wasn't capable of handling the presidency, because he was. God knows he was more capable than some of the birds we've had in there.
Do you think he would have agreed with Obamacare?
No, but I'll tell you right now, we wouldn't have the mess we have now if he'd been alive. I can guarantee that. It would, because he was excellent with both sides of the aisle.
Yeah, wasn't he?
He would work. There wouldn't be this gridlock. There wouldn't be this animosity.
He worked
I know
with
there
a
wouldn't.
lot
No, he did. I'm
of
not kidding.
Republicans.
And I think a lot of the things that have been jammed down people's throats, he would have seen. You don't need to do that. But
Richard, what do you think?
Well, I'm not even going to go into it.
the Romney thing threw you off, Rich. I'm sorry.
Oh, listen, we're all in this together.
President either, but I do think that there's a point where something has to be done regarding the number of people who don't have health care. Health insurance doesn't come into it, and that's where I think this president has missed the boat. Is he's trying to make sure everyone has health care without addressing, rather health.
May I say something?
Now I've recognized Rich.
Yeah, Richard.
Yes.
I'm going to say this. I look at it as the biggest money grab in the history of this United States.
Well, the problem is it doesn't address the need.
Well, I haven't finished.
Okay.
That a girl, Karen.
Obama turned this world, our worlds, upside down for 10% of the population. 10%. Now, I'm not saying they shouldn't have, but some of them didn't want it, Richard. They simply didn't want it. Now, for 10%, and he's arrogant about it, it is not working. People can't even get on the website.
Whether or not it's working yet, because I think it's too early to know that. I think if you look at any of the programs that have been put in, from Social Security to Medicare, early on they had their problems.
That's
like
not
this.
so. That is not so.
Like
not like this, Richard.
There's never been such a cluster, as we say, as this fiasco. And it's because it was even Democrats weren't for it, Richard, and he still steamrolled it. He steamrolled it, and that's not, and no public situation should follow that. And I believe, once again, I believe he steamrolled it because he has every intention of people who don't work, who don't even come into this country legally. He has every intention of them still getting health care. So, and that is, to me, disgraceful. That's like giving criminals an allowance. All right, that's it.
Okay.
We'll discuss this another time, Richard, over a coffee.
Okay.
Hey, Richard.
Yes.
Do you still love me?
Of course I do.
Of course I do. Too late.
I cross both sides of the aisle, too.
Well,
but,
I do, too, but anyway.
Thank you so much, Richard. I mean, that was an honor for you to call.
Well, thank you.
Well, I don't consider it that. Thanks, Rich, very much.
You're very welcome. We'll talk to you both soon.
Okay, good.
Okay, bye-bye.
That's so
Yeah.
funny. I mean,
I didn't recognize him at first, then all of a sudden I did.
Yeah, they're all watching. That's because
So,
you're here.
Oh, yeah. Well. So what else do we want to yap about here?
Well, you live in Carver, and you
I do.
love Carver.
I love the town of Carver. I do. It's
And you
very
have
nice.
you have memorabilia of the Kennedys that go, 3 days to Sunday.
Well, I want to just, because as you know, I guess you've got a clip you're going to show.
We have a clip that was done
at my place.
at your place by another host, and that was
Ken Simmons did a good job.
Came in, and Kenny filmed, and Richard was there.
Yeah. Ken Burns.
Oh, you call him Ken
Burns. They call him Ken Burns. Ken does, that's all right.
But what do they call Richard?
Oh,
Richard,
I don't know. We won't go.
Richard is the one who taught Kenny. So,
but anyway, what I wanted to say is, just so that, again, I thought about this at the time. I've had all this memorabilia in storage.
Yeah.
So when I ended up, as you know, I built these little condos next door to the restaurant, which I still have, and the gift shop. They were unable to make it because of the economy, so it was empty. And like a lot of retail space that's available, it's very difficult to find anyone. So I already had a bathroom in it, and so I put a little kitchenette, and I rent the other condos out.
Nice.
And then I moved into it. Well, that gave me all these walls that were in the gift shop. So I thought, well, I have all this stuff stored upstairs, so I'll put some of it on the walls, which I did. My paintings and stuff that I've had.
Paintings that Ted did.
Yeah, they're prints, but they're paintings.
Yeah.
But there were things that I purposely brought down for the show that, because of the 50th anniversary, it's not like I have a memorial. When I think about it, it looks sometimes like somebody said, do you have all that stuff every day?
No.
I've taken half of it and put it back into storage, but I thought it would be consistent with this period of 50 years for those of us that are still around.
Don't you remember that day like it was yesterday?
I remember it.
It was awful.
And to this day, it's the saddest day. I hate to say it's the saddest 2 days.
I can't watch it.
I see him and I get teary.
I loved him. I can say honestly that I loved him.
Well, look at how the world went, during this period. I don't care what age you were or what party. And he was no different than he had his flaws. He wasn't a perfect man nor a perfect president.
No.
I mean, the sad thing is that I was not aware till, well, I knew a little bit, but there was tremendous animosity toward him for that second term in the South over the civil rights issue.
I heard that.
And there were people who threatened. I mean, this.
Yes.
It was, again, I hate to say it, but I thought it was an arrogant, stupid thing for him to be in Dallas knowing that there was real trouble around the country with the top down on that car. But that's hindsight, But
it just didn't
sometimes you
happen.
have to be careful even if it appears,
that's us talking now. Then that wasn't even thought about.
No, but it was, Karen. That's my point. There were huge threats against him that he was aware of. Not only in Dallas, but as I say, the South. There were. I just think it was. Hindsight's 20/20. I understand, but it really was an over the top. I think, not arrogant, but just saying, "Oh well, I'm going to do it." The people are being so nice, and they were. It was just not acknowledging the tremendous animosity that was out there.
We were never the same after that. Then Bobby was killed, and Martin Luther King, and it just got worse and worse. It was a terrible time to go through.
Those 60s were tough.
It was awful.
Those of us that were in our 20s, you know.
And Kenny and I were just married, and it was, you know, everything changed from, you know, Father Knows Best.
Yeah.
You were catapulted into this horror, and life was never the same.
Yep.
Oh,
Well, I
jeez.
believe that television saw the huge, of course, they were all about ratings, unfortunately, the national television. And I look at the programming we have now. I mean, we have some shows on there.
I don't watch TV.
Oh, I mean, even the boss, the singer, what's his name? They call him the boss. My mind just went. Springsteen.
Yeah.
Remember, he had the song out there, you know, 99 channels and nothing to watch.
Nothing to watch.
I mean, there is some real low-life junk that's on there. But getting back to the, I think what happened is the networks found out the tremendous appeal of tragedy and violence.
Oh, but
After that Kennedy thing. And look what we have now. Look at the violence that's on television on a regular. I mean, those Law and Order, all these things that are...
desensitizes
every single
you.
day, they're desensitized. But anyway.
Right. All right.
So what else
Do we
can we
want to
talk
see the clip right now and then get
Well,
back into
sure.
other things?
That's fine.
Kenny, do you have that queued up?
Is Ken Burns in the back room
Oh,
there?
dear God. I live
Is
with
he
him.
ready? That was at the fundraiser up at the State House. And what's kind of interesting is I knew him, but we hadn't spent a lot of time at that time.
That's a great picture.
Yeah, but what was funny, Ken, is I had that in one of my restaurants, and he came in with a friend one night, and he saw the picture, and he looked at it, and he got a magic mark, and he says, to Don, my staff signed the bottom.
Yeah.
I'll sign the top. So he never signed the original, but that's great. But another interesting is this is a painting of his.
Teddy's?
Yes, and
I didn't know Ted painted.
well, a lot of people forget what he went through, and again, I'm not excusing everything for anybody, but the man was an incredible person, and when he broke his back in the plane crash, you know, he was up in Northampton on his way to a convention to speak. He was given the last rites twice.
Oh, I didn't know
almost
that.
3 times. Wow. And 2 people were killed, the pilot and another one, and he was saved by Birch Byers. I think it was Birch Byers' son, another senator that was there. But in the process, he was in that wheel, you know, in his rehab.
Yep.
And of course couldn't do anything, and so he decided he'd try to paint. And he learned to paint, and I got 2 or 3 I'll show you, but
that's pretty damn good.
Yeah, it's pretty darn good, isn't it? Huh? And he wrote a nice note there too. So.
Teddy has the people think that Teddy was not a very smart guy. How would you evaluate his intelligence?
Well, I think they did the same. I'm not saying he was as smart as Jack, but he was very astute, and no one worked like he did. I remember seeing him. Oh, every single day. No one will work harder than Ted Kennedy did. That's the truth. And he used to have a black briefcase. It would be this thick, filled. And he would be reading that. I'd come down for coffee in the morning sometime. He'd be reading, and it was his brother Jack's briefcase.
Would you
He'd bring the work into, you know, back to Hyannisport every single day. He'd fly out at 6 in the morning. There was no one to work.
Would you stay overnight in his house?
No, I didn't stay overnight.
Oh, you said you came down for coffee.
Well, I lived right up. I was only 3 houses up the hill from his house.
Okay, wow.
So he'd invite me. He'd say, "Come on, or I'd just walk down." We'd sail in the winter. Can you imagine?
How long did you know?
In the snow. Oh, about 15 years. Really well. Yeah.
Wow. You know his wife too, I guess.
Yep, Vicky.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Anything else we could take a look at?
This was another person that's of interest to people. Lee Remick, she was a very good friend, and her husband, Kip Gowans.
She was a Quincy girl.
She was a Quincy girl, and they had, some people may still be around, like us, that remember Remicks and Quincy.
Yep, I knew her father.
Well, her father, of course, was a very handsome man.
Oh, gorgeous. He was
and
gorgeous.
my father played baseball for the old Boston Braves. Well, he was with Hartford, the AAA. And in the winter, the baseball players didn't make the kind of money now. They didn't make much money at all. And so they all worked in the winter. So my father worked for Mr. Remick in the winters in the men's department.
No kidding.
And Mr. Remick, if you remember, would have, for Christmas season, they had fashion shows.
Yeah.
They called them style shows.
Yeah.
And he was the first, I believe, to have wine and cheese for the customers. And then he'd ask the employees if they'd like to have their children model clothes for the show. So my mother volunteered me. And I remember hating it. They made me wear short pants, and I can remember it was saddle shoes. And
you look good in short pants now.
Yeah. But anyway, Lee Remick played the sister. She was in, there was a family group. And so Lee and I were brother and sister. She was, I think, 6 years older than I. But I always wanted to meet her years later. My mother would always say every time there was a Lee Remick movie, she'd say, "Donnie, you know, you modeled with." I said, "I know, I know, Mom." Well, I met her at my restaurant on Hyannis, the Asa Burris House.
Say that again. What was the name of the restaurant?
The Asa Burris House. It was named for the ship's captain.
Oh, okay.
It was very popular.
Did you have another restaurant down there too?
Yeah, the Flying Bridge in Falmouth.
Flying Bridge
on the harbor. But Lee came there, and I went over and I met her, and I thought, I hope she's not a snob. You know, you never know. And she was so beautiful, and she turned, and she had bought a house in Osterville, and she said, "Well, how do you do?" And I said, "Well, rumor has it you're a famous personage." I don't know where I came up with that, but anyway. So she smiled, and right away I knew she was nice. And then I said, "But the real reason I wanted to meet you," and I tell her the story about us modeling. And she jumped out of her chair, gives me a big hug, says, "My mother's got pictures," you know, and her mother and father had divorced, and her mother was an actress. And a lot of people don't know. Yeah, and that's how Lee got into. She was a dancer.
Oh.
But we became dear friends, and I was with her, unfortunately, when she was ill, and of course she died. She was only 56 years old.
Oh, that's too young. Too young.
But
she was a good actress too.
Oh, she was.
You caught me.
Caught her.
What'd you think of that? Now that's an hour-long program, and they go into other things that Donnie has up on the walls. But I want to tell you that it's running right here on PAC TV, and it ran today at 2:30, tomorrow at 9 a.m., Saturday at 9 p.m., and Sunday again at 9 p.m. And it will rerun, but we don't know those times. So tomorrow, if you can catch it at 9 a.m. and Saturday at 9 p.m. It's really interesting because you have the stories to back up every artifact. Yeah. So, you know, I've got to come by to see it.
You're more than welcome, yeah. Well, as I say, it just, it came to me, people ask me if I do something knowing my background, and with the 50th anniversary, and especially, as you know, Yankee Magazine this month did a piece on John F. Kennedy, remembered by the local Hyannis, and they interviewed a bunch of us, and they chose what I had to say, and so that also motivated me to say, you know, it's different with those people, well-intended, but they never knew the people.
Yes.
As I say in that, you know, when I was playing the piano many, many times in the house where you see all these pictures that I saw in Stop and Shop of the interior of the house when they had Peter Loff, and you know, that famous family picture. And all of those paintings and mirrors and the chairs are pretty much the same. But one of the sad things was the first time I played, Mrs. Rose was alive in a wheelchair, and I played My Wild Irish Rose, and I did a bunch of stuff. But I first looked on the top of the piano, and there was this silver-framed picture of John Kennedy that the kids all gave to their mother on that Thanksgiving, on that Christmas after that first year. And all their signatures were etched into that frame, and it was so moving for me to see that.
I don't know how she went through it. I really don't.
Imagine.
We have another phone call, Don.
Okay.
Hello, you're on Talk of the Town.
Hi there.
Hi there.
How you doing?
Good.
Listen, I want to ask, I just tuned in a little while ago, I want to ask Don what he thought about the Kennedy offspring, the Patrick Kennedys, the Joe Kennedys. As politicians, are they quality people, or are they just living off the name?
I take the second part of your statement as being the truth. I think that their name has carried them into places that they don't necessarily belong, and I find that unfortunate. And that's the truth of the matter. You know, friends are no friends. I believe in merit, and I believe in paying your dues, and I believe in knowing what you're doing, and that's another thing that just drove me out of the Democratic Party. There's too many good people out there who would do a good job, and they're unelectable because they don't have the money or the advantages that the Kennedys have. Now, that's not to say that all of the Kennedy offspring aren't capable of doing a good job, but I've always been against that. I mean, it's the American way, but it's still not, that doesn't make it right.
So where are we heading with this? I mean, where are we going to go with politics now? The Democratic Party is not the same Democratic Party as...
well, we're a socialist country right now, and they just haven't incorporated it into the Democratic Party's name. It should be the Democratic Socialist Party. And anyone that takes offense at that, just look up the definition of socialism. I mean, we have young people coming out of schools now don't know what communism is, what socialism is. They don't know what Marxism is. They don't know squat. All they know is sometimes what the teachers tell them, and that is to vote for a Democrat. And it's pathetic. So.
But if a good Democrat came along, you'd vote for him.
Of course I would.
But that's
it's the same thing with women. I'd love to see a qualified woman, and I'm not anti anyone. Contrarily, but I say this on the radio too. It just is testament to this country now being run by feelings, not facts. You tell me, anyone, why if someone votes against a person because they're black, or because they're gay, or because they're female, or because they're Jewish, or because they're Muslim, if they vote against them, they are either a racist or a homophobe, or they're a bad person, if that's how they vote. But if a person votes for somebody because they're black, because they're female, because they're gay, because they're Muslim, they are wonderful. They're enlightened, and they're terrific. Both votes are equally unacceptable, because merit has never been part of the consideration. And yet that's what we have now. And unfortunately, it's in this feelings capability now. And that, I mean, to think of what, one of the things that I just heard is Lunenburg High School, a female superintendent of schools. I coached football. I was in, Weymouth. We had a big football history. Now think of where we've come. There was a racial slur, it was in the papers, about a black person anyway, but some spread the rumor that it was the football team. This superintendent, just because of today's ridiculous atmosphere, she called off the Thanksgiving game. Now look at what that, and then it was found out now after the fact that the football team wasn't involved. But even if one student or two students had done this, look at who was affected. The football team. All these years of all those kids working so hard to play, their parents, the cheerleaders, the band, the alumni, the business community doubled because the other team also had the same things taken away from them. What? For a slur? That's where we've come?
Well, some sort of punishment should have happened, but the investigation should have happened first.
Well, it couldn't happen but the point was, Karen,
yeah,
all those innocent people to be punished on a Thanksgiving Day.
I get it.
By this idiotic emotional response today. It is, you know, I still believe in sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never harm me. We're over the top with all this verbal problem, you know.
Do we still have our caller?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Oh, I've done all the talking again.
No,
I'm sorry.
No. Would you like to ask something else?
Oh, I just enjoy seeing Don. I hear him once in a while on the radio, and I see him around the campus every now and then. So.
Okay, well, I appreciate the call.
Thank you so much for calling.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
No,
I said I wasn't going to get upset, but I can't help it.
Yeah, I know. Listen.
I just can't. So many innocent people are being affected by this one mentality of, oh, you can't say this. You can't. Oh, come on.
But there has to be balance, and it seems the balance is tilted.
Well, there isn't any balance.
Yeah. I know. I mean, it's taken a lot for you to get to this point in your life.
Yes.
I mean,
I don't like the fact that so many people are doormats now to a minority position. We're run by minority positions right now. I don't have anything against anyone. I am all for minority help when it is based on merit, period. None of this handout, none of this automatic because you're this or that, you get a step up. And it's taken over, and it's a shame because it's caused the problems that they say brought it about, you know?
Well, we took away the responsibility from ourselves because when we were growing up, we helped the next door neighbor or the guy down the street or you know, I mean, we were the ones who helped people personally. And we gave them a leg up, and we did many, many things, but we lost that. When this country changed from tragedy, then the hippy-dippy thing came in. They started burning bras. I used to say to Kenny...
Burning bras? Yeah, did you ever do that, Karen?
No, but...
How about long hair?
I
know Kenny must have had long hair.
No, he never did.
He didn't have the hippy-dippy look?
No.
Oh, brother, I would have thought sure he did.
I appreciate it now more than I did then.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was too busy raising a family. He was too busy. He had 3 jobs. I mean, you did what you did.
Yeah.
But they moved the goalpost on us. You know, you came out of this era that was fantastic.
Yeah.
This wonderful, wonderful era into horror. And
well, it's a self-centered, self-absorbed culture, and it's not one political party. It's a cultural thing.
Please.
Too many people have too much that they didn't work for, you know?
Yeah, that's
and
why.
that's always, you know, again, what bothers me is educationally that, you know, we all know that those that don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it, and yet that's not how we're handling our educational system, you know? We are very capable, you know, we have the expression, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. We're very capable of becoming a third world. You know, Rome never thought it would collapse either.
But it happens very fast.
Well, I've said we are morally bankrupt right now, and no one has done anything about it. And that has not just a sexual connotation. I'm talking about how we treat each other. The only time the attention gets played is when we go financially bankrupt, and that's what we are now approaching. is a total. I mean, we have bailed out so many situations with money that is not worth the paper that it's on, and eventually it's going to catch up, and it's going to be a huge.
It started
huge,
already.
No, it's going to be huge.
Now, Don,
I feel for our working people. My era, I mean, God willing, all I got to worry about is getting out of bed in the morning. As long as I can do that, I have a pretty good day.
You have miles to go.
Yeah.
But you've written a book that yet has to be...
Well, I'm in the process. Yes.
And it's about your experiences.
Well, yes.
And you know, it takes time to write a book, but I want you back here.
You were telling me you've written one, huh?
Yes, my audience knows I have. You're not seeing it, so.
Oh, that's not fair.
Yeah,
you want to see mine?
Yeah, I do, and it's you know, it's based on fact. Yours is based on.
Well, same thing. Yeah, it's just like memoirs, and
right.
Mostly, you know. As you said, you got to write about yourself a little bit, but that's only as the tapestry of your life unfolds. And I'm more concerned with telling the stories. I've been very lucky, very, very lucky. I'm very grateful.
You had a rich life.
And I'm mostly grateful for the wonderful people that I've had in my life. You know, I had a lot of money and lost a lot of money. Those things could not matter less to me. It's the people. And again, that's something that I think, too often forget to be grateful. My God, with all the problems in this country, we're still the finest country there has ever been. We are still the most giving. We are the most kind. We do more, you know. And when I hear people maligning the country over and over, it's a sad thing. It bothers me very much.
Very much. Well, you know, we could have done another hour.
Probably. I talk so much.
No, this is almost over. And
I have no trouble talking.
And you're on Saturday mornings.
Saturday mornings, the 2 fastest hours on radio.
Yeah. Can you be on more? I mean.
Well, I don't know.
You don't know?
I used to be on every morning.
I know. I know.
So I'm on 11 to 1, 95.1 FM. I'm proud of the show.
Every Saturday, 10 to 12.
Every Saturday, 11 to 1.
11 to 1.
11 to 1.
All right. Don, thank you so much,
my pleasure,
for
Karen.
being here.
Thank you so much.
Now, everybody, next week, Malcolm McGregor is here, and I can't wait for this interview. He's a wonderful man. He's done a lot for this town. And so, I'll see you in 7. Wow, that went by